Hey folks, JD here, and today I thought we would look at the three folding quadcopters that we've been using the past couple of two of them we've been using the past couple of weeks, one of them we used a little while ago, to see what the differences are and also to see which one of the three I reckon is the best flyer. Now, there are a lot of folding quadcopters. Obviously you've got the DJI Mavic, you've got small nanocopters, smaller than this as well, which have folding arms. These are the only three that I have flown. Well, technically I've flown four because I've flown the JJRC's version of this. Now, the reason that's not on this table is quite simple, because it's exactly the same as this Eachine. So pretty much this Eachine is going to double up as both the Eachine and the JJRC. Because in both of the tests, they both flew exactly the same. And all the specifications of them are exactly the same as well. Okay, so let's start off with the Skytech. So this is my first, I think this is my second folding quadcopter that I flew. And I was really quite astounded when I first saw it. It had two things which I hadn't seen on any of the previous folding quadcopter. One of them was that these landing sprigs, as you just saw, they come apart and they fold back on themselves and clip to the main body. That in itself, that is brilliant, because it takes up absolutely no room whatsoever. But it does mean that when you clip it in, they are in, and they are in really sturdy as well. Now that was number one. Number two was that it used a little button mechanism that you had to push down in order, let's show you this side, a little button mechanism here that you've got to push down in order to pull out the arm. And if you don't have your finger on it, it won't open all the way. See? And that was something that really gave me confidence to fly this, because it's very strange, it's very different, because when you look at a folding quadcopter, you'd think to yourself, well, as it's cutting through the air, if it's flying into the wind, well, what's going to stop the arms folding back on themselves? Well, exactly that. This little button and this locking mechanism. Doesn't matter, as you can see there, I'm putting a lot of pressure, but it's just not moving at all. Now if I keep that pressure and press this button, you'll see the quadcopter just folds in straight away. So this button locking mechanism does make one heck of a difference. So when all of the arms are pulled out, because all four of them have the same locking mechanism, this is pretty much what you're looking at. You're looking at a really large size quadcopter, which is really quite stable when it flies. Okay, because of the pull-out landing sprigs, it's not the most stable. See, this isn't the table moving, as you can see from the quadcopters here. This is just the Skytech. But that isn't so much of a big issue for me. But what is the big issue is the fact that these landing sprigs just fold away. That's just brilliant. Now, on flying this, I was really impressed with how stable it was, how stable the barometer was as well. Now, 'cause I've taken it out a few times, sometimes in quite high sunshine, others when there's been a little undercurrent of a wind, and still the barometer acts really well. It senses the air pressure, and instead of it moving up and down as it's reading, it stays pretty level. There's a little bit of movement, but altogether a very stable quadcopter. Very easy to pilot, I think, on speed mode 1. Now speed mode 2, because this only does have 2 speed modes, is, as it says on the body of the quadcopter here, I think it's pretty extreme. And it does go from being quite easy to maneuver to being really quick when it maneuvers. So I would probably not go on speed mode 2 unless you're quite experienced with flying quadcopters. Now, this has been the Skytech. This just is a brilliant unit. It really is. I mean, every single time I've taken it out, I've always been impressed with it. I've always thought that it has flown really, really well. And above all the gimmicky things to do with this quadcopter just work. Like the automatic takeoff, automatic landing works. The folding arms and the folding sprigs, they haven't damaged. And yes, okay, I have crashed this once or twice, but still, no part of the quadcopter is damaged at all, and it still looks brand new. I'm absolutely astounded. A really, really good folding quadcopter. Alright, that's number one. Let's move on to number two. This is the Eachine, also the JJRC as well, has exactly the same model as this. Now this little guy was marketed as a selfie drone, a portable folding selfie drone. Well, I think that's all wrong. Personally, this thing can take as good selfies as I can swim in the channel. It's just terrible. And that's just down to the fact that it doesn't stay still. Even with all the trim in the world, this thing still wants to move backwards, move forwards, and doesn't want to hover. So I've taken this out a few times and flown it a few times, and every single time I have pretty much just been left quite cold, I think. As long as when you're flying from your smartphone, so as long as you're flying, as long as you keep your right thumb pulling down a little bit, then this will fly quite true. But to me, that isn't good enough. You should be able to not hold anything with your right and still be able to maneuver, and the quadcopter will still be able to stay flat and not fly backwards like this one does. The JJRC, obviously, as it is the same unit, suffered the same issues. In the review, I said that it was a pretty good quadcopter, and as a quadcopter goes, it's okay. It flies, it can maneuver quite well, its responsiveness to the transmit to the smartphone is quite quick, so there's not really a lag, there's no real delay. That being said, the camera is just not good enough to be known as a selfie quadcopter, as a selfie camera, and the quadcopter itself, I don't think, is going to hover when you're standing here to take a photograph of yourself. I certainly couldn't get it to do it on the JJRC or the Eachine. It's just not stable enough. All the photos I've managed to take of myself are really blurred. But that being said, I have taken it out a few times. I kept it in my bag for a while, and I've flown it at lunchtimes at work and certain other times when there's been nobody else around, and it flies okay. But you do have to have a bit of experience in order to control it, because this thing just wants to keep on moving backwards all the time. Assembly wise, this is actually quite nice. This is probably the saving grace, I think, of this quadcopter, is the fact that it does fold away so remarkably well, and it does pull out so easily as well. I mean, that in itself is just so much quicker than the Skytech, but it's just not as, the copter just is not as good as the Skytech, nowhere near it. To be honest with you, it's quite unfair putting this up against the Skytech. But to be honest, the build quality is good. I have crashed this a couple of times just as I was getting used to it, and once again, it hasn't marked, it hasn't dented, and there has been no issue with it. All in all, I've been quite happy with just having this as a quadcopter and nothing else. I don't use the camera, don't use it for taking selfies, just fly it around a bit just for a bit of fun, and it does accomplish that. So that's number 2. Let's move on to number 3. So number 3 is the King Toys 628 Dream. This is the newest out of the 3 folding quadcopters, and I bought this because, well, to be honest with you, I like orange, you know, and it's a folding quadcopter, and I've really been really impressed. So this can fly from transmitter and your phone, even though I have been unsuccessful in flying it from my smart device. It has flown from the transmitter really, really well. If we flip it over, it's really quite encased. It shares a lot of similarities to the underneath to the Eachine, and to be honest, there's a couple of really niggly points, and I know they're niggly, and I know when you're watching this you're probably going to say, that is, John, that's terrible. But my first niggly point is this: landing sprigs. These are absolutely terrible. I mean, I've flown this 3 times, and these are just ripped to hell. That is quite a niggly point. I know it's niggly, but to be honest, they have protected the underside of the quad. There is no marking, there are no markings to the underside from the landings, so they've done their job. I just wouldn't have minded them being a little bit larger, or something a little bit more sturdy, which would give you a proper little bit of ground clearance when the quadcopter landed. Build wise, very, very good again. These quadcopter arms, when you pull them out, they're spring loaded, so you get to a certain place, and then, as you saw there, they just click in, and it's actually really quite stiff to move them, so that in itself is really quite good. Flight wise, very, very stable. Barometer was a little bit twitchy, it does move a little bit, did leave me a little bit nervous at the start of the flight, but all in all, very good. Does require a huge space to turn though. Instead of this just kind of turning round and then going, it starts off here and it ends up right the way over. It really does arc, it arcs quite a bit. That being said though, I didn't find that it detracted a lot from the flight. I just had to be aware that I needed a larger space to turn her around. So yes, another excellent quadcopter, really good build quality. All in all, I think it is an excellent folding drone that you could just put in your pocket. Camera's pretty good. Camera can swivel right the way around as well as we saw. So when you get it, the camera's going to be pointing down, but you can swivel it a little way up as well. Transmitter wise, signal to this is excellent. I didn't have any issues in communication from the transmitter to this. It does come with 2 batteries as well. Flight time of this is best part of 10 minutes per battery. This is about 6 minutes and this is about 12 minutes. So all in all, the Dream runs away with battery time just because it has the 2 batteries and not the 1. So there we go. Let's have a little look at all of them. So we've got the Skytech, we've got the Dream, we've got the Eachine. So all in all, 3 excellent drones. I favour these 2. And overall, I think I favour this one, most definitely. The Skytech wins in my eyes every single time. It has never disappointed, it's never faltered, it has just flown spectacularly. I'll be looking out for more remote control cars, boats, whatever, made by Skytech, because I think these guys are going to be very good. So, there we are, folks. I hope you've enjoyed. Thank you ever so much for watching and listening. I've been JD, you've been fantastic as always. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Hello and welcome to all the new subscribers. I hope you're enjoying the channel. So until next time, my friends, happy flying.